Season 13 is here, 21 legends, no BS. Let's rank them all. First up are the C-tier legends as in Apex. Pretty much every legend is viable if you are playing the way they are meant to be played. This is a pub and or ranked tier list, but primarily the ranking is based on overall power with a slight emphasis on general pub play. The first legend rocking a C- is the incredibly fun and satisfying Mirage. However, we are not ranking this on fun, and Mirage is fairly weak when it comes not only to Apex in general, but relevance in the meta. The tactical clone can be clutch once in a while, and his ultimate also can be great to confuse enemies, but any experienced player can't pick out the decoys, and this kind of limits his skill level. Mirage has had almost no changes in a very long time, and as the skill level increases across the player base, it kind of just makes Mirage worse and worse, and a lot harder to recommend. He is a lot of fun to play, don't get me wrong, but at the end of it all, he just is not that great. Team viability and support also makes it very hard to recommend Mirage over a legend like Bloodhound or Gibraltar, Valkyrie, Wraith, Ashe, Loba, and pretty much every other legend in Apex. And the passive revive is also clutch, but with Newcastle entering the fold, it in some ways makes his passive revive seem not as good. Mirage is fun, but he is kind of an outdated legend, and hopefully he will get some love soon. The legend with the largest drop off for me from her release is going to be the Mad Maggie at C+. I do think she is capable of performing higher, but for a new legend to come in as weak as she is, it's pretty brutal. Maggie has had the worst reception and pick rate for any new legend since either Fuse or Rampart way back at Season 8 or Season 6. Her passive shotgun speed boost and seeing players through walls is pretty weak, although occasionally I guess it can be useful. Her drill is arguably the best thing going for her, as it can be wildly good in late game when there is little cover, and forcing people out is a huge steal, although I do think a lot of other legends can do this a little bit better. As for her ultimate, I'm not sure, but the rolling ball for me, it's pretty weak, easily avoidable, and the speed nodes are cool, but they just do not seem that great. It's kind of like throw the ball, let everyone know you're about to make a push, and then the enemies watch you moving up. Not to mention, this masks your audio completely, as the Apex audio is already pretty bad, and these loud speed nodes make it even harder to track someone. Mad Maggie has a ton of potential, and I think with a few tweaks, her pick rate can soar way up, but until this new legend does get a little bit of a buff, I am going to be waiting to see if she can turn it around. We now have the legends that are good or decent at B tier, and we do have Lifeline at B-, which puts her borderline just okay. Recommending this support healer legend is extremely hard for me to do right now when a new legend like Newcastle comes into the game who has movement, an old lifeline like Revive Shield, and an actual wall he can fortify and move around. Lifeline, on the other hand, I don't think is even better than Gibraltar when it comes to reviving, as he can provide cover and it revives the player faster. Lifeline's revive is okay, but it's nothing what it once was. Her ultimate care package also takes a long amount of time to charge up, and by the time it's actually ready to call in, you probably don't really need it, and the way it just reveals your location really is not worth it. The best thing for me right now with Lifeline is comboing her tactical healing drone and shield cells. This is very nice to get a clutch win mid-fight, as you can heal twice the amount of speed as any other player. I enjoy Lifeline, and the rumor is that we are going to get a mid-season buff for her, which I really hope comes sooner than later. If you are looking to grind ranked this season, Wattson is going to be a great pick, and she is our next legend at a solid B tier, which is good. That being said, for pubs in general power play, she just does not fit the meta, and I think that is okay. Her mid-season 11 buff was much welcomed, and her quality of life update was very nice, but Wattson just does not fit in Apex Legends' faster-paced movement style. Overall, Wattson's fences can be very good used aggressively, but this is a skill that many Apex players are not going to invest the time or even be capable of acquiring, and it's a lot more steps than a legend like Cossack, who just tosses a gas on the ground and he's good to go. Her ultimate pylon is crazy though. Stopping ordinances and being able to quickly heal shields for the entire squad does make her have some sort of team support in there, which is much welcomed. Wattson can be a lot of fun if you want a very tactical legend, as it is very rewarding, but for grinding kills and overall power, I don't think she's it. He's been better, he's been worse. Revenant is another decent legend in Apex who is maybe a little forgotten about. It's been more than a year since Revtain's craziness went off during Season 8, but since then, Revenant has kind of quieted down and landed in a relatively fine spot. He's good on certain maps, but for this season, Stormpoint is a pretty huge deal, and I think this hurts him more than helps. Many buildings aren't climbing friendly, and in general, there's a lot of terrain compared to a map like Olympus. His passive climbing, though, is sneaky good when it is usable, and his tactical silence might be one of the best counters to pretty much every highly picked legend in the game, which is often forgotten about, and I do think it is underrated. His ultimate, though, is pretty loud, and it notifies everyone within the entire server that he is using his ult, which is a bit rough at times. If coordinated properly, it can be crazy though, but due to his dependence on your squad's communication and even their legends, I don't think it's really that great or worth something over like a Gibraltar ultimate or even a Bloodhound ultimate. Revenant is good, but he's had better days. If you want an alternate aggressive legend that is a flanker at heart, he's gonna be for you. We now have quite a few legends at B+ who are borderline amazing, but are still very good picks for general play. The first is going to be Seer. Seer came in like a wrecking ball and not a Mad Maggie ball at the launch of Season 10, but he quickly saw nerfs and really has had not much love since then. He is still pretty good though, as his passive Harpy is very good at finding players without them knowing. The tactical is incredibly clutch at canceling abilities or revive, and the ultimate is just okay, I think, when it comes to getting recon of an area. Seer for me requires a little bit more work to gain information than a legend like Bloodhound, who just taps their scan ability and gets that intel right away. Seer has to bring his hands up, scan around, and then relay that information to his team, which is good, but it's not quite as readily available in my opinion. Similarly, his tactical is clutch at gaining information, and it's a little bit more direct, but it requires accurate placement when, again, Bloodhound gets this instantly, and you can be pretty brainless with using that ability. If you want a different or alternate scanner legend with a slightly different playstyle, Seer is going to be a pick for you. We now have one of the legends who in my past was my favorite in the game, but Crypto for a minute has not been meta. A good Crypto with a crazy sense of timing honestly could be an upper A tier legend, but for power rankings, he's good, borderline amazing. Crypto is honestly the passive, while the drone is truly the legend. Everything revolves around that drone, scanning, EMPing, and lots more. Crypto being able to remotely send out the drone is a huge relief, and you can activate the drone mid-fight to get quick flash scans or an EMP a little bit more tactically. Crypto does have so much utility, and we have seen him being very popular in the ALGS, but even for ranked, I don't think he's really it. Although the new RP system could help out figuring the late zones and overall recon, so he may be a more popular pick as the season progresses. EMPing to farm damage is also pretty great, and you can counter those pesky caustic traps with Crypto. Crypto is a tough one, but a really great legend if you do want a scanner with a lot of utility and even team support. The Forgotten Legend, one of the legends who has had very few changes over Apex Legends lifecycle, Bangalore is up next. Bangalore, for the first time in what feels like forever, saw a new legend come into the game, or a legend that has not had any buffs, not have scanning abilities, which I guess does help her a little. That being said, she still has to deal with Bloodhound, Seer, Crypto, Fuse, and Mad Maggie, to name a few, who all do have scanning abilities. If Bloodhound was not as popular or as good, Bangalore would just be better, but since Bloodhound's in nearly 1 out of every 4 squads, it's a very tough thing to deal with. Bangalore's passive of faster movement when dodging shots is absolutely sick, and her ultimate can also create avenues to provide relief. Her smokes, when used properly, can also be incredibly clutch, especially if you do have a digital threat, if you're not fighting against a Bloodhound. Bangalore is honestly a blast to play, and she's one of the most pure hybrid legends in Apex, who we have seen excel from time to time. Definitely pick her up if you do want an aggressive legend with a little bit of support in there as well. After Bangalore, we do have the newly buffed Rampart, who for the first time, I can confidently say this does actually make her considerably better, even more so than the Season 10 Sheila buff we had. Walls placing faster and having 3 times the amount of health are actually very good, and they can make them useful in fights beyond just ratting behind that amped wall. Her passive did kind of see a hit as LMGs were widely nerfed, but the return of the Spitfire on the ground is a nice perk to this, and her ultimate now spins up a little faster, which does help as well. Rampart does still suffer from the nature of her kit though, which is just not as friendly to the overall meta, kind of like Wattson, as it still requires you to play a little bit more stationary. But if you can get down a more aggressive playstyle, or at least be a little bit more mobile with her, she will do quite nicely for you. I am almost embarrassed to say it, but I had quite a good time with her, and I'm looking to see if she can be pushed even further as the season does move on. Rampart may have been revitalized this season, but if you do want another way to revitalize your game, pick up some Glitch Energy, the sponsor for today's video. Gaming into the late hours of the night, trying to hit Masters Pred, or platinum can be grueling, so grab some Glitch to keep your focus up and give you a boost in energy to keep gaining that RP. Glitch has tons of delicious flavor options, my personal favorite being Sour Bomb. Use code TimProvision for 25% off your entire order. Be sure to check out the brand new Glitch After Dark starter kit for a fire glow-in-the-dark shaker. Moving us on, we do have the amazing and incredible legends at A tier. We do have 2 incredible legends at A-, with the first being my sleeper pick of the entire list, Fuse. A year ago, Fuse was pretty trash, but consistent buffs over the past year have put him in a pretty good spot, and this is still the case for Season 13. Fuse has the capability, kind of like Mad Maggie, to force people out from cover, but Fuse gets to do this much more frequently since he does have 2 tactical charges, and the tactical knuckle clusters, in my opinion, are pretty deadly and a lot better than the drill. Fuse's ultimate gives brief recon, and of course it's very powerful to those walking into the flames, getting slowed and taking damage while also being tracked by the ticks of damage. The passive is just lukewarm for me though, and once you are out of grenades, it does lose any sort of capability. But overall, Fuse is a very good legend, and I don't think he is talked about enough. If you want a pretty great legend that can push people and force movement, Fuse is gonna work out quite well for you. Loot, 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 and more loot. Loba is another legend who is quite good if you are a pub warrior looking for more action faster. Loba helps you prioritize high tier loot off the spawn, which is underrated, but her passive does lose its usefulness after the early game. Her tactical bracelet is also pretty solid, although it is pretty easy to track, and when she does come out of the bracelet, she can be a pretty easy target if not used properly. Not to mention, once the bracelet goes, you can't really cancel it. But her black market ultimate will help anyone get items faster to get to the action a little bit quicker. If you want to purely improve your skill, I really do think Loba is a great legend as she bypasses some of the slower parts of Apex while enhancing your fighting capability. All of this though is more convenience than anything, so if you are looking for like an upper tier ranked pick that is really sweaty, I don't think she is going to be it. And when it does come to endgame, she isn't the most useful, but an endgame armor swap from time to time can be nice. She is a lot of fun to play, and if you do want to be that dope teammate that helps the squad get kitted, I think Loba is a good pick. Season 11's Ashe is on deck, and since her release, Ashe has been a great legend that is pretty unique when it does come to playstyle, while also catering to an aggressive player. Kind of like Loba, Ashe lets you get to the action faster with her passive deathbox tracking, which is great for pubs. The tactical snare on paper is kind of weak, but holding someone up even for a couple seconds can be very deadly, and her ultimate is where she shines. Not only does this phase breach come back quickly, this rapid transportation to height or onto enemies means you can make a lot more plays in ways that other legends just cannot do as quickly. Her kit is very simple, which does help her approachability, and if you really want an aggressive legend that is pretty edgy, I do think Ashe is going to be the pick. I can see Ashe getting a pretty big role in the meta of Apex Legends if some of the legends above her do get a nerf, so you definitely need to keep an eye on this legend. Getting good with Ashe now could pay in big ways in the future. The next A-tier legend is the brand new, shiny, fortified castle himself, Newcastle. I put Newcastle straight into a class of legends that previous legends such as Ashe, Horizon, and even Valkyrie fit into. Like these legends, Newcastle's potential is absolutely massive, and the amount of utility he has to help himself and the squad is a pretty big deal. His passive of reviving and moving teammates is quite nice and very interesting, as it makes him basically an OG lifeline while also letting him move around. The tactical shield can also be great for temporary relief in the open or give you just enough cover to heal up when you are in a pinch. And Newcastle's ultimate is going to be the ability that requires a ton of creativity, but truthfully, this is the big thing going for him. The capability to rapidly gain height and control an area can't be underestimated. I never thought it would come to this, but Newcastle actually has a movement ability that really is amazing. Newcastle has the potential to be rated even higher, but time will tell how the meta shakes up. I don't think he is Gibraltar level yet, but if Gibby does get any sort of change, Newcastle might come in to fill some big shoes. We are now moving into the borderline, top of the line legends, but do me a favor and hit the like button if you are enjoying the video. The first legend is one of the most popular, if not the most popular in the game. Octane has been worse, and he's been a lot better, but right now Octane seems to be in a decent spot that still makes him very enjoyable to play for those looking for high-speed action. A passive to regen health is nice, a tactical stim to speed into or out of situations or away from your teammates, am I right? And of course, an ultimate to move the squad around or straight over extend to your death. Regardless of the Octane player that you are, he is is a blast to use and a ton of fun, but beyond this, he simply just performs in all levels of Apex. There's not a lot to say about this legend. He's been out for a long time. If you want a simple legend to focus on gun skill and movement, pick him up. Caustic is up next. Caustic usually fits into one of two camps of players. Nerf him into the ground or buff him back to what he used to be. But Caustic right now is still a very good legend that can be played both aggressively and defensively. The gas traps are very useful for locking down areas, and his gas ultimate can be used for forcing movement and playing aggressively. Caustic kind of can do it all, but the fact that players do get slowed down while being in the gas is very useful, as it does allow Caustic to beam those players while also being fortified to soak up even more damage. Caustic really has it all going for him, but if anything does hurt him, it's going to be that the gas traps can be hard focused now and destroyed. Plus, the gas isn't really that deadly to players if they are aware of how long they are in the gas. With that being said, it is still very good. Caustic is great if you want to play ranked Apex. He's probably an S tier pick for this. Pathfinder is up next, my actual main at the moment. Pathfinder may lack a real useful passive, but he does make up for it in his movement capabilities with the grapple. The grapple is incredibly good, and it does require a lot of skill to unlock its full potential. Arguably, the grapple is the highest skill ceiling ability in the game, but it is well worth learning, and it is very satisfying. Unlike something like Horizon's Tactical Lift, the grapple has non-linear movement, which makes it very hard to track, and it's much more fluid when it does come to fighting or escaping. This zipline is also still very good to gain high ground or quickly get around in certain spots. The timer is also pretty quick for an ultimate, so using multiple ziplines in a game is pretty cool. The passive of ziplines coming back from beacons is forgettable though, although I think it is kind of underrated. Most likely the reason why we have not seen a real passive for Pathfinder is because his pick rate is very healthy, and so is his win rate. I decided to drop him down a third or half tier because his passive is missing more or less, and he is a pretty chunky legend, which does make him pretty beamable. If you do want a movement legend with a grapple to make crazy clips, Path is gonna be it. Before we do get to the S tier legends, hop into Discord if you ever want to not play with randoms, because that sucks. Also, you can chat with myself, and I'm always happy to answer any questions that you might have. The S tier legends are the best of the best in Apex, whose complete kit of abilities are more or less all very useful, or at least one part of their kit can make up for a slight weakness. Seasons come, seasons go, but one thing remains: Wraith is in S tier. I do have her at a slight minus though, as she could really use maybe a passive ability, but much like Pathfinder, she probably won't get anything since her pick rate is crazy high. Her resetting capability and overall power to look around while being able to retreat is where she shines. She is just reliable, and even her portal is great to move knock teammates or just transport yourself around in larger areas. Not to mention, Wraith's hitbox is still very generous, and her small size will even more so let you scout around and figure out how to play the next fight. Wraith's truly the legend for an in-game leader or those looking to really sweat it up. Some do wish Wraith would get some more love, and while the running joke is that her tactical does take eons to activate, she is still an incredible legend. And of course, how about that new Wraith skin? We now have a legend that I did bump down a third of a tier from last season, but still they are an incredible pick, and this is Bloodhound. Bloodhound is one of the best legends for those looking to be useful with really no effort required. A passive tracking is nice to run enemies down, a tactical that is dumb good with wall hacks that would be cheating in games, and an ultimate to pop off and go crazy in fights. Bloodhound's slight tier nerf for me was really because I do think they are not as needed on a map like Stormpoint that is pretty huge. That being said, it's pretty crazy how relevant this legend has been and for how long they have been. Bloodhound scans really just put the game into easy mode and almost to the player's detriment sometimes. I do think that the Hound is a great pick if you are just starting out, but players definitely need to be wary of becoming over reliant on scans and getting that info. Definitely don't sleep on Bloodhound, and be sure to grab them if you want a reliable pick for both ranked and pubs. At a straight up S tier, we are going to have the return E to this tier, and this is Horizon. The last time Horizon was S tier for me was before the Season 9 nerf, and while it did take some time for her to gain relevance again, she is the movement legend of all movement legends. I still think she is criminally underrated, but her passive is incredible, arguably the best in the game, if not a top 3. Being able to have better in-air movement makes you harder to hit and more elusive, while this being paired up with her tactical lift makes it so you can be quite creative, sliding in and out of situations and being very aggressive while even supporting the team. While Pathfinder's grapple might be better overall, the lift has usefulness not just for herself, but for the the entire squad, which in my eyes makes it a little bit better, as Apex at its core is a team game. Horizon's ultimate black hole is probably the worst thing going for her, but even then, it can be used to breach buildings and provide just enough distraction to get enemies down. Back to Horizon's lift though, it's an absolute menace. If used properly, healing on this lift and even raining fire down from above is so good, and every Horizon should be getting this down. If you want a pure, good movement legend that has a lot of viability in the meta of Apex, definitely give her a look at. Surprise, surprise, we are here again. The big guy, Gibraltar, is another S tier legend in Apex who time and time again shows his overall viability in Apex as being the legend to rule all legends and the legend that players can just lean on. In the past, for some reason, I never really thought Gibraltar was that overpowered for general play, but I do think we are getting to the point where he is getting to be a little bit much. A gun shield passive to give you 50 health on top of already being fortified, a tactical dome that is literally godlike for faster revives, protect your squad, and just allow for easier rotations in the open, and of course an ultimate that can be a squad wiper or at least force people to use their abilities and have movement. Gibby just has it all, and if you want to be relied on for big playmaking in more of a supportive role, he's the legend for you for both pubs, ranked, and even a tournament here and there. Do I even need to say it? Valkyrie is locking in our S+ tier spot once again. I guess Respawn did kind of address Valkyrie's power with an almost irrelevant nerf for anything outside of an ALGS tournament level play. But that being said, it does kind of seem like they understand she is very powerful and they want her to remain the way she is. Stormpoint being back to ranked and being very prevalent just makes her a must-have for this massive map, so you can get around without having a complete dead game without any sort of action. Valkyrie's passive alone of pinging beacons, literal flying, and scanning on redeploys honestly would be enough to be a legend all of its own, but adding in tactical missiles to damage and stun enemies and an ultimate to redeploy is literally just godlike. If you are new to Apex, she's probably the legend you should unlock, as it does seem like she isn't going anywhere this season. Valkyrie may be OP, but in order to really excel with her and in other aspects of Apex, you absolutely need to check out my 101 tips to instantly improve so you can master and accelerate your game. But as always, happy gaming, legends.